People who understand Chinese Japanese, what's the dumbest thing you've seen tattooed on someone? Took Mandarin in high school. My teacher told us about a woman who had a tattoo of the word air, probably thinking it meant free as in free spirited, but it actually means free as in no cost. Double quote. While stationed in Japan, a friend got a tattoo by some random guy outside of base. He wanted some Shinto quote for a prosperous life, but instead got the kanji reading something like fat fish eat long. The Japanese workers just called him fat fish for the next 3 years. It caught on live fire, even random people from other commands knew his nickname. Guy had no A now on his arm. Said it meant lover of Asian beauty when in fact it means foreign pervert. I met a girl when I was backpacking in China who knowingly had the characters for prostitute tattooed on her hip. She thought it was funny. And the only people who saw it would be ones she chose to show it to. The Chinese guy who was drinking with us in the hostel was horrified and suggested that she get another tattoo underneath which said only joking. The 4 elements tattoo with dirt. Hot, blow, wet was pretty funny. I speak Mandarin. And it works both ways. Here's one in reverse. On the beach in Taiwan I saw a huge, and I mean huge, ripped Taiwanese guy walking on the beach in Hualien with his girlfriend. On his back in black Gothic letters, flanked by swords, was the phrase, "Slut dude." Told him it was an interesting choice and tattoo store behind it. Turned out he thought he was getting a tattoo that said swordsman. When he found out what it actually said, well, wouldn't want to be that artist. Not my story, but a friend of mine. She could read kanji and was in class one day noticing this girl's tattoo for the first time. Confused, she inquired about it. "What does your tattoo say?" Double quote. "Hi princess." Turns out it actually said pig princess. Dude was so proud of his grandson that he had a tattoo that said "I love my grandson." Except I'm guessing everyone just googled "I love my grandson" because it came out reading "I love fat boys." Double quote. Whoops. I don't know if this was stupid or brilliant, but someone had ear cuter, which is respectfully asking if they had soup dumplings. I thought it was really stupid until someone said that they must really like soup dumplings. A lot of women haven't written on them. For some reason they think having the word woman written in Japanese adds some sort of mystical feminine power to it, when in reality people most often associate it with a bathroom door. Imagine seeing Japanese women walking around with woman tattooed on themselves. On top of that, the kanji is often written rather sloppily, like something a 5-year-old would write, rather than elegant script. Saw a pretty tatted up guy one day with some Chinese markings on his forearm. Asked him what they meant and he said just a bunch of random Chinese letters. To which I inquired, "Which ones?" And he corrected me, saying no. It said just a bunch of random Chinese letters. Thought it was pretty slick. I, 27F, don't understand Chinese Japanese, have the characters for strawberry on my shoulder. Was at a gym changing and gal one who could read the language says, "Oh, strawberry, I love your tattoo." I explained why I had gotten the tattoo, long story involving strawberries, and gal 2 overheard our conversation. Gal 2 says I have a tattoo that means wisdom and shows us. Gal 1 says, "That says turtle." Once when I was in university, working at a shop, a very fat lady came in with the kanji for large tattooed on her shoulder blade. I politely complimented her tattoo and asked what it meant. She said it meant sassy. I have the characters for shrimp dumpling, go, tattooed on me. I knowingly did this because I'm half Chinese and fricking love shrimp dumplings. I had a Chinese girl ask me if I knew what it meant and I laughed and said of course. I love dumplings. My Chinese mother was not impressed but then laughed and said it was very me. The second mistake I see apart from bad translation is that they use computer font for tattoos instead of calligraphic styles. Basically, it's the equivalent of getting an English tattoo in Times New Roman. Even if the character is correct, it looks like reading a bland text document. If you really insist on getting Japanese Chinese tattoos, Make sure the artist is also familiar with the language and calligraphic styles along with getting the translation correct. Also, translations do not exactly work one-on-one. A phrase that sounds cool in English might sound extremely silly or childish if directly translated. Researching Japanese Chinese phrases is a better method and avoids the bad translation issue. Finally, it helps understanding some cultural context surrounding tattoos. In Japan, tattoos are almost entirely associated with the Yakuza. So don't be surprised if your tattoos aren't a hit with Japanese people even if you had everything correct. I saw someone with the characters for Big and Father and figured it was like an approximation of Big Daddy. The guy got really agitated with me and told me it was Chinese for eternal wealth. Okay. Charcoal grill instead of 7 rings. It always cracks me up to see people with single characters tattooed on themselves. Especially characters for the natural elements. I imagine the same tattoo except it says dirt in plain English. And it makes me laugh. Not Chinese Japanese, but I knew a guy who had a Ganesh tattoo and told me very robustly that his was the god of war. I attempted to let him down gently. Not a tattoo, but replay container stitched on a hat in Japanese. I knew a guy who thought he had warrior tattooed on his arm, but another friend informed me actually read drunk asshole. He was an asshole. And often drunk. So I chose to believe this. Not tattooed on someone, but I once saw a car with AORU written on it. It reads yakisoba, which is a Japanese noodle dish. Not Chinese or Japanese, but a lot of people seem to like using Greek letters as substitutes for English. It then makes no sense. E. G. E diaresis A diaresis U gravure acute. Japanese. Not a tattoo but on a shirt and it literally said Big Mac. My uncle has egg drop soup tattooed on his wrist in Mandarin. He tells everyone it means something different. Strength. Destiny. Etc. But he got it so that he can go to the Chinese place when he is super hungover. He wears shades and noise cancelling headphones. Points to his wrist and is able to stay in his happy place while getting his favorite hangover meal. And yes, he was hungover when he got the tattoo. Not the circumstances in THR question, but still similar. My mom used to work as an ophthalmic tech. The doctors gave the techs free rein when it came to scrubs, so my mom and her friends always had really fun scrubs and clogs. One set had some Chinese characters all over them. After work one day, her and her work friends all got dinner, and while they were waiting to be seated, a Chinese family came in and was behind them. The father got a kick out of the scrubs because they were just a random mix of words. My mom said he was pointing them out to her like this one means shoes and so on. Her friends were dying laughing, and while my mom thought it was super funny too, she stopped wearing those scrubs. I don't speak Japanese nor Chinese. But I once had an art academy colleague who had 2 kanjis she had tattooed on each shoulder. And she believed they meant eternal happiness or something. Because she saw them in a book at a flea market. I copied the kanjis on a piece of paper and translated them on Google. They roughly translated to foot fungus. The kanjis are these. Not Chinese or Japanese, but I have the tattoo. I got a tattoo that was supposed to mean Phyllis. A friend who majored in Mandarin says it means small cake. Not Chinese or Japanese, but relatable. Korean. Worked with a guy in Korea as an ESL teacher. He had the words Greek letter delta Greek letter omega A in poorly written handwriting or American person tatted on his butt cheek and showed me one day the only tattoo he had. Lol. A work colleague, now long-term friend, had Pompui tattooed on his shoulder. He had been to Thailand and the locals nicknamed him Pompui and said it meant happy fat man. He was fat. He was happy. Lovely man. He did not know how to spell it, or even say it correctly. But 20 years later, he still loves that tattoo. Japanese speaker here. Some guy had one that said D in Japanese on his neck. I laughed so hard in the train and no one knew why. Watermelon. White guy on my college basketball team had a Japanese tat down his arm. Asked what it said. He said my name. I said cool. And he said, no, literally. It says my name, not my actual name. I was like, oh man. That's horrible. Double quote. And he was like, no. It was intentional. I was drunk and thought it'd be hilarious and or a good way to pick up Japanese chicks who'd feel sorry for me. Double quote. I came away thinking the guy was a huge idiot. Translator here. So many good ones. Had a metalhead guy think he had rock and roll in Japanese on his arm. Turns out it was Greek letter sigma raya, which is rock slide landslide. The natural disaster. Had a girl with a tramp stamp she thought meant sweet babe. But actually had RAOE. Lit. Sugar baby. Then there are the ones that are either backwards, incomplete, or nonsensical. The latter usually happens when you try and translate an idiom, PR phrase or clergy motivational saying and you end up with passionate passion, fear or something equally meaningless. Not a tattoo. But my uncle, Chinese, married into the family, got me a bag for Christmas a few years ago with kanji on it. It's a very cool bag, it's lead. But I didn't want to be that fool who walked around with a weed bag and didn't even know what it meant. I asked my uncle. He apparently didn't know. He wasn't even sure if it was Japanese, Chinese, or Korean, which I found interesting considering I knew he spoke Mandarin and he grew up in an ESL household. So I tried to Google it and enlisted my dad in talking to his army friends to figure it out. I finally found out by searching for the bag itself online rather than just the text on it. It turns out the text translates to the worst. It's meant to be a joke to make fun of people who get kanji tattoos without knowing what they mean. Once I found out what my bag said, I loved it even more and confidently wore it out since I could safely explain the joke to people. Found out this past Christmas that my uncle picked it out because he thought it was some anime Naruto thing. Thanks, Uncle Ed. I speak Japanese and I have seen quite a lot of tattoos that don't make sense because they are clearly direct translations from English. Or because people don't take cultural context into consideration. Like the kanji for woman and man, Nsua, which do literally mean woman and man. But in Japan the singular kanji strongly connotes a public toilet since this is what is on the doors. Then there's all the inverted miswritten kanji. In another direction. I also speak Danish, Swedish and Norwegian and it has become real popular to use the vowels in other countries. I guess. To indicate Scandinavian quality, authenticity, coolness. I don't know. But it never makes any sense. Like the makeup company costs. I know it's just a name. But it sounds really stupid. Not a tattoo, but when I was a child I loved and idolized Mulan to a point where I was probably, unintentionally, racist. I wanted to be Chinese so I could be her, lol. Super cringe. Well, I was in love with this necklace I got out of one of those gumball machines that had a Chinese character. I wore it all the time. Then one day a new girl my age moves to my town from China. And the first time I met her, she looks at my necklace and informs me it just means big. A reverse of this, when I was traveling in Vietnam in the late 1990s. I came across a kids clothing shop that had a kid's size mannequin wearing a t-shirt that had the words IF on the first date on the front of the shirt. And the words yeah boy on the back. The mannequin was in the little area in front of the store facing the street. I remember taking a picture of it. But it was on film and I don't know where it is now. Saw a guy with a A on USA tattoo on his back which he thought meant something like treasure each day. The literal translation is today is gold. Not the worst one. But to someone who was a native speaker it would be very strange. I saw a woman at Whataburger once with her husband's name Alex tattooed on her wrist in Arabic. She had it spelled Alif Lam Kaf Sidain. Or, which, to be fair, is probably the best way to spell Alex in Arabic script. Even Google Translate will tell you that translates to Alex. The problem is that Alif Lam in Arabic just means the end, unlike in English. The in Arabic is treated like a prefix rather than a separate word, so it connects directly to the beginning of the word. So anyone reading her tattoo as an Arabic word will just see it as saying the kaf sidain. What does kaf sidain a circumflex mean? It's pronounced Cass and it's a vulgar term for vagina. Her tattoo of her husband's name read in Arabic would be pronounced Al-Cas and literally means the pussy.